slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scaver and when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these ADs are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid on this Friday as we close out the week. Thanks for being part of our show this morning. We're going to preview the upcoming Super Bowl of NASCAR. That's right. The Daytona 500 is this weekend. Our buddy Jim Sanis is back in the house to give us a preview as to who could win the big race coming up this weekend. In addition, Aram Leighton is going to join us. We'll talk some Major League Baseball. We'll get into the NBA with Gilbert McGregor. The NBA All-Star break is officially here. So what can we expect in the dunk contest this weekend in addition to the second half of the NBA season? That and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. But let's get started with some sports betting news, and it's not on the positive side. For those of you who are living in the Twin Cities or anywhere in the state of Minnesota, it does not appear sports betting is coming to you. The proposal that was trying to get through the Senate has been rejected. Gambling supporters thought they hit the jackpot when some stakeholders endorsed a bill to legalize bets in Minnesota, but the Senate committee turned it down. So as of right now, the state does not approve sports betting. They're going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board on this one. And Senator Matt Klein said it was a rare phenomenon, which was backed by all the stakeholders, but not backed by the bill and the government itself. The state of Minnesota in a state of limbo with sports betting in 2025 does not look like it's going to happen. All right, well, the good news for Minnesota is that if there is one team in the Twin Cities that appears to be ready to take down the potential champs, it definitely is the Minnesota Timberwolves. How about their win last night? 116-101. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, stopped their 7-game winning streak. Anthony Edwards had 23 points. Minnesota finishes the first half with a 31-25 record. The West, by the way, has been dominated all season long by the Thunder. They're 44-10. Mark Daigneault talked after the game about the outcome.
Yeah, just got off to a poor start and then did a nice job in the second quarter of getting ourselves back into position to give ourselves a chance, and then cut into it in the third and really gave ourselves a chance. But they just outplayed us for way too much of the night tonight to come out of here with a win. We shot more free throws. They shot 20-something% from 3. It was just kind of a point of attack, offensive rebounding. They just kind of outworked us for that one. Yeah, tonight was obviously the exception for us. We've transcended our circumstances for much of the season. We haven't had excuses. and different guys have stepped up on different nights. So the body of work is definitely in a great place. But obviously we weren't there tonight enough to get a road win.
All right, so Oklahoma City ends the first half with a loss. Also a big loss again for the Dallas Mavericks. Another injury for them. Daniel Gafford, one of their best big men, out 6 weeks, 12.7 rebounds a game. He's got a right MCL sprain. It looks like 2 months for Gafford. But meanwhile, what was in the water last night with the Dallas Mavericks not having Anthony Davis, Gafford, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson? I mean, somehow the Mavericks beat the Miami Heat last night with basically no one. The final 118-113. The Heat has now lost 4 straight games to go into the break. Tyler Hero had 40 points. He missed the game-tying shot. Dante Exum was the high scorer last night for Dallas. Eric Spoelstra absolutely looking for answers after that one.
It seemed like another one of those games. You got up 4, you got up 6, you were in position to do something, and then almost within a flash every time they came back. Why does that keep happening?
Yeah, we need to have our breakthrough. We talked about it. We were actually +7 when they called the timeout, and they went on an 8-0 run. Then it ended up being another 6-0 run. I believe it was 14 and 15 straight. And we just have to be better. We have to be better with our execution, intentionality, with what we're trying to do offensively. I understand it wasn't going to be a lot of precision execution either way because both teams were just switching everything and taking away all the triggers. But intentionality, obviously need to be better. And then, we always talk about it, that you can alleviate a lot of that stuff with just multiple stops in a row, but it happened fast. By the time I called that timeout, it was a minute and a half, 8-0 run. And we're going to correct that. We're going to get better. We have enough experience with it now. Our guys are fully aware of it. Everybody wants to be better in these situations, when we're up. We'll take a few days off and, I'll get to work. The staff will get to work. We'll do what we need to do. I promise we're going to correct this.
We shall see. A tough time for the Miami Heat right now. Good time for the Golden State Warriors as Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry are helping that team win. 27 points last night for Golden State. How about the spread? It was 6, and the final score 105-98. The odds makers certainly know what they're doing. Warriors took an 11-2 run to go up 11, and then Houston, sort of stormed back in this one. It was actually 88-86 with 7 minutes to go. Jimmy Butler played big in this one, and there was some thought that maybe Butler would not get along with former champ Draymond Green, still with the Golden State Warriors. But Green in some shades last night after the game did not throw any shade toward Butler.
He's a franchise changer. He's done that everywhere he's gone, and he is helping revitalize what we got here, the belief amongst this team now that he's arrived as opposed to what it was before he got here. It's night and day. We let one get away last night, but this one tonight we would have lost. But just having a guy like that changes everything for us. So after 4 games, what was the word you used? Evaluation? No, assessment. The assessment is great.
Where's your chemistry level with him? Because it looks like you guys are developing that chemistry.
It's getting there. It takes a while, but Jimmy over communicates, which is great. He doesn't leave anything in the gray area. He come like, hey, so what was I supposed to do there? What did you want me to do there? He over communicates about every play. Sign of a true leader. And so. I love what he's bringing to this team. Just like I said, as a leader, coming in and being that guy and not just taking the back seat because that's what we need. But chemistry is definitely getting there. But it'll take some more time and we'll continue to figure it out. But like I said before, you start playing. We're all winners, and we're all smart basketball players, so we can figure it out.
Warriors have figured it out through the years. It looks like the Clippers figured it out, at least for one night. Just give the ball to Norman Powell and let him do his thing. Didn't see that one coming. 41 points for Norman Powell last night. James Harden had 32. Clippers come back in overtime to beat the Utah Jazz by 4. C.J. McCollum, by the way, big games for a lot of guys last night. 43 points. Pelicans over the Kings. So much scoring this season. 140-133 in overtime. All right, Juju Watkins has a huge game. USC in college basketball rallies to beat top-ranked UCLA. The Trojans win 71-60 in that game. Also, Derek Queen had 24 points in Lincoln. Maryland beats Nebraska 83-75. Number 14, Memphis extends their winning streak to 8 games. They beat South Florida. Final score 80-65. Light night tonight in college basketball. Usually the case ahead of all the big games tomorrow. All right, lots of news in Major League Baseball, especially with all the pitchers and catchers not just reporting but throwing on the mound this week. Full squads coming up next week in games next weekend in spring training. Yes, it's really happening. The Dodgers have finalized their contract with Clayton Kershaw. It's a 1-year, $7.5 million. He's 32 strikeouts away from 3,000. At some point, he'll pitch this season. Nobody really knows when. The Brewers have named Freddie Peralta their opening day starter for their second straight year. The Marlins have named Sandy Alcantara, no huge surprise, their opening day starter. And the Padres make a move signing the equivalent of what the KBO Cy Young Award is. It is Kyle Hart, who signs a 1-year deal with the Padres. And also this morning it was announced that Joey Gallo is coming back for another season as he signs a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox. All right, that's what we got to start the show. We got Gilbert McGregor, though, up next. We'll see if we can dive into the MVP. Is it an open and shut case? Is SGA the MVP winner? Hasn't been a bigger favorite at this time of the year like SGA is. Can the Joker or Giannis, somebody come back to capture that award? We'll ask Gilbert next. Don't go away.
At some point, these ADs are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
It's like a Valentine's Day treat to get Gilbert McGregor back on the show again this week ahead of the NBA's All-Star Weekend. Gilbert, happy Valentine's Day. Thanks for coming on the show. I hope you have a special night planned ahead for you and making some time for me here on the show today. How are you?
Absolutely. Happy Valentine's Day, Craig. My night will be consisting of a lot of the NBA's rising stars, but we can call that special too, I guess.
All right, a little rising star hearts tonight. We'll see. All right, it was a heartfelt night last night for the Minnesota Timberwolves. All right, so maybe there is a team that can beat Oklahoma City. I know it was just one game, but like no one's beaten them at all this season, and the game was kind of close too. But All right, let's put Minnesota down as a potential threat. If they can beat them in 1, maybe they could beat them 4 out of 7.
You know, Minnesota's an interesting team. They came out of the gate struggling this season, and people were trying to figure out what was going on. There were a lot of chemistry issues. The Karl Anthony Towns trade and Julius Randle's been out of the lineup, and they've kind of figured some things out with him out. They're a team who seems to be built more for playoff success, and we saw it last night in their win over the Thunder. I think we've seen some of the Thunder's flaws and issues this season. They go as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes. He struggled a little bit last night, and they struggled to get going from beyond the arc. You see this Anthony Edwards dunk that he had last night. That definitely was a tone setter as well for the Timberwolves. So when I think about what the Timberwolves are doing and the Thunder's flaws, they probably need some more shooting. I think they were 7 of 29 from 3 last night. We saw that in the NBA Cup final. So maybe the key to beating this Thunder team is limiting their three-point shooting and limiting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Easier said than done, but still there's a path.
I think at least we saw a team fight against them, which is what I wanted to see too. Okay, so SGA was getting heckled a bit last night. I didn't realize how many free throws the guy does have this season after I saw him getting heckled as a free throw merchant, but I don't care. I mean, the guy's played great. I mean, somehow you got to get to 45 points. Michael Jordan had a lot of free throws too. SGA is minus 470 to win the MVP. Do we need to spend more than 30 seconds on this? I mean, how is it possible that anybody else is going to win the MVP after the season he's having? I mean, basically he'd have to go in a shell in the final 20 games. I do think, Gilbert, it's open and shut.
Absolutely. It feels like it's his award to lose. Now, of course, there's that games played minimum. He has to reach that threshold. But, barring anything unforeseen happening, it seems like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will follow that path line, that first trail blazed by Steve Nash as the second Canadian MVP, and definitely rightly so. We talk about the Thunder's record and how well he's playing. And when we talk about the free throws, like you said, Michael Jordan, whatever elite scorer you talk about, it's a skill to get to the free throw line. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has that skill, but I understand how it could be frustrating for opposing fans.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, Karl Malone, another guy, just constantly at the free throw line. Okay, so the East, certainly has probably, I would say, 5 teams, that can fight, that can win. I still think the West probably better in the end, but the Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Pacers, and Bucks with Giannis, we should always say that, Bucks with Giannis are obviously going to be some sort of contender in the East. Good for Detroit, by the way, that they're 31-23 on the season. It's been a tough time for them the last few years, so they're there as well. But I have to believe that either Cleveland or Boston is going to finish number 1. But I do think there's probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 teams with Milwaukee that, hey, you never know. It's the playoffs, 7-game series. Anybody could beat anybody. So I wouldn't rule even Milwaukee out.
Right. We learned that last year, Craig, that it's about matchups, injuries happen, and things of that nature. When I think about teams that are built for success and making it all the way to the NBA Finals, I look at Boston first. I think they've been a little bored during the regular season, which is why they're not at first in the standings. But I think the Cavaliers have proven themselves capable as contending in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks as well. I think they need to establish themselves more and get a few more signature wins for me to really believe in them. But they've gotten some guys back healthy, which would be interesting for them as well. And then I put the Bucks right on a tier below those 3 teams because they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the fact that any series they play in, it's likely they'll have the best player in the series, and you always have a chance. But as we learned last year, anything could happen in the playoffs, so seeding will be very important for these teams in the East.
All right, Gilbert, sell me on this All-Star weekend. Nobody in the NBA wants to even sell this, not even the broadcasters, not even Charles Barkley or Shaq. They're not even trying to sell this. I mean, anyway, so here it is. It's 4 teams, 3 All-Star squads, and a Rising Star squad. There's a 3-game tournament on Sunday instead of just the 1 game. First team to 40 points determines the winner of each game, and the winners get $125,000. Why'd they do this, Gilbert? I mean, why? I don't get it.
Oftentimes people say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But as we saw last year, the All-Star game format was broken, and they're trying to fix it. I don't know if it's going to work, but at least they're trying something. And I think the goal is to have the guys compete more than they have in years past. And the games being shorter, going to 40, hopefully they get more defense. Hopefully we get some more bragging rights. You bring in a team of young players who don't necessarily care as much, and they maybe have it on their mind to embarrass the older squads. Maybe they'll have a different sense of pride in that. So I'm going into it with an open mind. I'm a little leery of it, and it definitely could go not the way that they expect it to. But the biggest thing that I hope to see is another level of competition and see guys kind of take some pride for some bragging rights and a pretty nice prize money. $125 in a day is not a bad Sunday.
No, definitely not. All right, so the 3-point contest has the big names in this thing with Brunson and Tyler Hero, Cade Cunningham. Damian Lillard is the favorite, but I think FanDuel is telling us this could be anybody because he's 3-1 as the favorite. I mean, Norman Powell's so hot lately. Why not him? I'll throw, a dart here at a plus 650 on him with the Clippers. So, look, it's a guessing game in this sort of thing. Anybody can win, but there's nobody plus 100 or plus 200. Gilbert tells me anybody's got a shot.
Right. In these contests, it's anybody's game. You have one bad round at the wrong time, and everything just goes away from what you thought it would go for. Damian Lillard looking to become the third player to ever three-peat in the three-point contest. I feel like I said the number 3 a bunch of times right there. But he is from Oakland and right across the bay from his hometown, so maybe he'll be a little motivated. But I do like Norman Powell coming off a huge game last night in Utah. So it's all about momentum. So a guy who hit a bunch of threes, I think he had 42 points last night in Utah. So maybe he'll ride that momentum into the Bay Area, and he will be a guy who will make people remember that he was snubbed from the All-Star game and wins three-point contest.
All right, and finally, the dunk contest, most anonymous dunk contest, I think, in the history of the dunk contest. There's no odds right now, even on this, Gilbert, on FanDuel. What does that tell you? Mac McQuillan says this is a – yeah, go ahead. I mean, I honestly, these guys, Gilbert, I have no – I mean, McClung I just know because of the dunk contest. I don't even know who anybody else is.
Yeah, McClung also going for a three-peat, which has never happened before in the dunk contest. It'll be interesting to see if that happens. Buzelis is a guy there. All your young players who look to make a name for themselves. Stephon Castle, I think, maybe is a guy to go with. He'll play a lot this weekend. He's playing in the Rising Stars game tonight, and he's super athletic. So watch Stephon Castle in the dunk contest.
Where's Dominique Wilkins, man? Like, I guess I'm old, but, like, come on. Like, big names. Get him back. All right, Gilbert, have a good weekend.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. So this is the most transparent I could ever be with you here on NewsWire. So I'm watching the Super Bowl last Sunday, and they show a commercial for the upcoming Daytona 500. Immediately I think, all right, got to fire up Jim Santis and get him back on the show. It's been a while, and now we got Jim back. Always so good to us, making appearances here. So versatile. I know we're going to get good plays coming up this weekend, Daytona 500. We had to do it, Jim. And thanks again for coming on. I know it's a busy day, Valentine's Day and everything else. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's a delight to be here. Always love talking some NASCAR with you, Craig. So it's been a while. How you been?
Man, I am doing great. You know, when football season ends, it means baseball season's coming, so that's awesome for me. But in the interim, you know, we got some things to settle. Some NASCAR, some golf, some NCAA tournament. But let's start off with the Daytona 500. I know that is the big betting event this weekend. And, of course, I saw a lot of changes here. And the first thing I want to do is actually go over that with you. Did I see that Helio Castroneves is racing the Daytona 500 and there are 41 cars this year? Like, how did that happen? I didn't even know that this was going on.
So it started a couple years ago. Elio was running in like a different series called SRX, which I believe is now defunct, and he won a race there. And like, kind of like the deal was, he said, okay, if I win an oval race in SRX, I need someone to give me a Daytona 500 ride. And it didn't happen last year, but Trackhouse is giving him a ride for this year. And they were the ones that gave Shane Van Gisbergen the ride for the Chicago Street Race a couple years ago when he won. So it's a good team. And Elio comes in, he runs the dual race last night, and you know, partly bad luck, but also partly, you know, inexperience, got involved in a crash in last night's race. So didn't get a lot of on-track time, unfortunately. But yeah, Helio Castroneves, an Indy 500 champion running the Daytona 500. We had Travis Pastrana in the field a couple years ago. That was pretty fun, too. Jimmy Johnson's back. Martin Truex Jr. coming out of a retirement, even though he never actually stopped racing. So it's a pretty fun and weird field this year.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely so. 41 drivers this year and cars. And, you know, I think if we go back and we take a look at who won last year, it was a little bit of a surprise that William Byron ended up winning. Ricky Stenhouse won in 23, Cindric in 22, McDowell in 21. And, you know, from doing my bit of research, it feels like a lot of people are backing the 2020 winner, Denny Hamlin, this time around on Sunday. So I'll turn it over to you and tell me if that's accurate.
Yeah, I mean, Denny's always a guy you can turn towards on the super speedway because he's proven he can be a winner at this track and he gets the job done when it matters. I actually, personally, Craig, like a guy who is also on that list, a former Daytona 500 champion in Austin Cindric. Now, he's 24-1 to win at FanDuel Sportsbook, and I'm honestly surprised he's still there because I like that on Wednesday before qualifying. And then Cindric went out and qualified second. So he got his spot locked in for the 500. He didn't have to do anything last night in the dual race. But he still won the dual race anyway, basically just for funsies. And that's pretty fun. And yet he's still there, 24-1 to win this race. Cindric is a guy driving for Team Penske who has always been really, really good on the super speedways. Of course, won that 2022 Daytona 500, his first race as a full-time driver in the Cup Series. He had a podium later that year at Daytona as well, I believe. And last year, there were 6 pack races. So Daytona, Talladega, or Atlanta. In those 6 pack races, Cindric's worst average running position was 12th. So he runs up front, he leads laps, and he's proven, as we saw in Daytona, he can get the job done at the end. Also an Xfinity Series winner in Daytona back in 2021. So honestly, I'm surprised he's still 24-1. He is among the favorites in my betting model for this week. It's him and his 2 Penske teammates. It's weird how that worked out, but it's him, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, the favorites by my numbers. Cindric not there. You do have Logano sitting at 13-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook, and then Blaney is also 13-1, whereas Cindric is 24. I think he should be, you know, not 13 because I think both those guys are a bit overvalued, but he should be a lot shorter than 24-1 based on my numbers. And I think that what we've seen so far on track has validated Cindric being in contention.
Yeah. And tell me who Chris Buescher is at 28-1. That's not a name I'm familiar with.
Yeah, Buescher's been in the Cup Series for a while, but is not like a superstar. He's a guy that I've always thought has been underappreciated as a driver, like a good talent, and he's specifically good on pack tracks. He actually did win in Daytona back in 2023 as well, a stretch where he won 3 races that year at 3 very different track types, running for RFK Racing, so driving alongside Brad Keselowski and Ryan Preece. It's another Ford team, and Fords traditionally have done very well in super speedways. They're very coordinated. They've got a lot of fast cars. The way that their bumpers work is actually very interesting. Like the anatomy of the bumper is actually pretty conducive to making them good on pack tracks. So it's been really, really fun. Buescher 28-1. I think a guy who can definitely get the job done here.
All right. Thanks, Jim, for making the appearance. Enjoy the race this weekend. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop it back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right can go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Sam McQuillan is with us from Legal Sports Report. We'll get into an update on the state of Texas, more cease and desists issued to offshore sports books, and the very latest on DraftKings winnings at the Super Bowl. Thanks again, Sam, for coming on the show. Thanks for making the appearance here on this very busy Valentine's Day edition of NewsWire. And love is in the air in DraftKings. They made some big, historic financial numbers during the big game, didn't they?
Yeah, certainly, Craig. Thanks for having me. DraftKings just last night announced their Q4 earnings for 2024, as well as the full entire year outlook of kind of how they did and where they are going to go going forward. But the big news here is that the stock market really loved what they heard. DraftKings right now is up to $53 a share on the stock exchange, which is its highest price it's been in 3.5 years. So investors are really loving what they heard. Some of what they heard is that revenue was up 13% in the fourth quarter, which was ahead of Wall Street's expectations. And it was also the company's first ever full year of profit with $181 million in EBITDA, which was up from $151 million in losses last year. So for a long time, we've talked about these sports betting companies making these huge investments, asking Wall Street and their investors for more money. And, you know, you have your first year of one of the major ones really taking home a lot of profit, which is kind of interesting when you talk about what happened during the fourth quarter and this past season. NFL obviously is the most popular sport to bet on, but DraftKings as well as FanDuel and everybody else got just absolutely killed on NFL results. This was the first time in 40 years that favorites won 75% of their games in a week. At least 10 times. So that's 10 out of 17 weeks where the favorites just overwhelmingly won. And obviously the public loves to back favorites. So that's been kind of the we talked about all NFL season was the public just keeps winning. But it's not a big concern for the stock market. They see that as, you know, what we call an industry headwind, just something that can happen. The fact that it's the first time it happened in about 40 years. People seem to be thinking that speaks less to the public necessarily getting better at sports betting and just kind of a random happenstance crapshoot occurrence. So it's interesting that they posted such low hold and bad results in the NFL, but Wall Street still really loved what they heard. This was DraftKings' best Super Bowl ever, which is no surprise considering what we talked about on Wednesday with, you know, the public just getting absolutely killed player props and same game parlays, despite winning on the major markets. So that's another big sign for the industry. And a good sign for DraftKings is people continue to bet more and more parlays. It hasn't stopped yet, and it's really helped them mitigate some of those headwinds. So it's a really good outlook so far to start the year for DraftKings. And going forward, I'm sure they'll try to build on momentum with customer acquisition. They just bought the online lottery retailer Jackpocket, which so far has produced good returns for them, though customers are spending at a little lower than they typically do on iGaming or sports betting because, lottery tickets are cheaper. So they're going to try to expand the business that way and hope for a more favorable NBA season and MLB season once that gets underway.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we could say it. The public was very lucky this season. You don't have to say any other word, Sam, for that. Winning a lot with favorites is luck. All right, so bad luck we learned this morning in the state of Minnesota. Maybe some good luck coming from Texas. Sam, I would not have predicted that Texas could legalize sports betting before the state of Minnesota, but it sure seems like there is at least a stronger possibility in Texas getting something on the bill with the results from Minnesota yesterday.
Yeah, you want to talk about luck and a crapshoot. It's which state is going to legalize sports betting next. One day you hear that Minnesota's close to doing it. Then you hear that Texas, a state you think will never do it, is inching towards it as well. So Texas, they introduced a bill this week which would allow the legislature to amend the state constitution to then legalize gambling. So essentially this would have to pass first the House, then the Senate. Then it would go towards voters in November on the ballot, and they would get to essentially pick whether or not they want sports betting legalized. Now, whenever sports betting has actually been able to get to the ballot in the state, it's usually passed. California is the only time it hasn't happened, and that was a very interesting, unique circumstance with the tribes and everything over there. But in Texas, this has been tried before. The legislature only meets in odd years, which is very strange. So that's been a big roadblock to getting this done. But beyond that, it's been the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, who has pretty much said that he will not be in favor of any gambling expansion. And the reason that's important is because he presides over the Senate. He basically determines what gets a vote, what even the Senate gets to take up. So as of right now, he's very aligned with the religious kind of right-wing, Old South base in Texas that doesn't want gambling expansion. That could change possibly. There was some speculation about whether he would be leaving, but as of right now, he's against it. So while this is a good kind of momentum, at least to bring the idea to the table, it's really going to take him turning around. But Texas has got a lot of attention as of late. The Adelmans obviously own the Dallas Mavericks now. They also own half of the publicly traded gambling companies, so they have a lot of influence and a lot of big reason to want sports betting legalized. Jerry Jones owns the Cowboys, has been a big proponent, as well as Mark Cuban, former owner of the Mavs, and we're really seeing the companies themselves focus on Texas as something they want to get over the finish line this year. But it's all going to come down to politics at the end of the day. The governor's in favor of it. It's getting more support, but unless the lieutenant governor changes his mind, it might be another uphill battle this year for Texas.
All right, well, maybe 2026, which is not right around the corner, by the way, a year to go there. No, it is not. Okay, so Michigan has some new cease and desist as far as the offshore sports books are concerned, telling them that you can't operate in our state anymore. I see a list of about 8, 9 here, Sam, and I've only really heard of one of them. So, the one that I've heard of is BetDSI. Years ago I was familiar with them. But needless to say, what's really fascinating is that these cease and desists are being taken seriously, as we've talked about a month ago, 2 months ago. I did not anticipate these offshore sports books saying, okay, we're done. They must have really been threatened to be like, hey, you're going to be going to jail if you don't get out, because they're following the rules.
Yeah, it's been one of the more underrated kind of plot lines we've seen develop over the past year is offshore sports books that are still very active. Like, just because you legalize sports betting doesn't mean these websites are going to go away, and they certainly haven't. They've kind of thrived off of this, popularity of legal sports betting in general, saying, hey, we also exist out here, and blurring the lines. And to your point, it's been really hard for states to enforce or take any action against them. But lately, they've been going away when the states tell them to. We have 9 more websites were issued cease and desist orders by Michigan regulators just this past week, which now brings the total list to about 17, including some other major ones like Bovada. And everyone has always said, there's nothing that's going to make them comply. These are websites that exist not in the U.S. There's no real teeth for these regulators to go after them. It would take federal regulators too, and federal regulators have a ton of other things they've been dealing with. This is very low on their list. So to see these websites respond and say, okay, we're going to leave immediately, really makes you think why they're going to leave, because these states don't have that much power, and kind of makes you wonder why this hasn't been done earlier. But it is spreading to other states. Other states, about 17 now, have taken some action against offshore sports books, and most of them, as far as I know, have complied. So it's been states where sports betting has been legal, been states where sports betting is illegal as well. So you have to wonder if something's coming to a head here when these websites stop responding, or if this is quite simply the answer to get rid of unregulated offshore sports betting, is just to tell them to leave, and they say, okay, we'll take our business somewhere else.
Yeah, I think there are things we do not know about this situation. It seems
definitely right about that.
Yeah, it seems too easy to see these sports books leaving when for years they wouldn't leave. Now all of a sudden they've just decided, okay, we're gone. I don't know. I wish I knew the answer, but we may never know. Sam, thanks again for coming on NewsWire. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Greg.
All right, coming up next, we talk some baseball with Just Baseball's Aram Leighton. Can't wait to catch up with him. We'll talk about what the Bregman signing to the Sox means and get Aram's list of prospects for next year, so don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop it back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes. End of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we break down the latest in Major League Baseball. Aram Leighton's with us. He and I have known each other for quite some time here, so it's always fun to chat and find out who he likes in terms of prospects. And I won't rip him at the end for his opinions because, again, everybody certainly has their opinions. But thanks for coming on the show. Happy Valentine's Day. Welcome back to NewsWire.
Likewise, it's awesome to be back on because, one, I'd love to always catch up with you, but two, it means baseball season's right on the horizon.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And look, I guess, there's two schools of thought here with the free agency these days, is that It feels like we're always going to get guys signing in February now until the new CBA comes in a couple of years. And I do think, by the way, there's going to be a new CBA, and it's going to be, a lot of changes going on in a couple of years. But for now, we're getting Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman and Nick Pivetta. This offseason, I think, was better than last offseason, which was just dreadful. All the players were signing in January and February. But Bregman ends up in Boston. And I wanted your opinion on really what this does for them. I personally, I'll give you my opinion, then I want yours. I don't think this does anything for them for the future. This is a one-year deal for me when I look at it on paper. This guy has a huge year. He's going to opt right out. Reminds me of when J.D. Martinez signed with Boston a few years ago with the opt-out, although he decided to stay in Boston. What do you make of this deal with Bregman to the Red Sox?
I 100% agree, and I think that's perfect for them and where they're at, right? Because they have these prospects, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, that are going to make potentially an impact as soon as this year, but for sure are in the long-term plans. Of course, in this instance, Christian Campbell is the guy that I think a lot of people are saying, okay, well, what does this mean for him? He is a guy that can move all over, but I think a lot of people were penciling him into second base. But you have to remember that you're hoping that Christian Campbell has a year anything like Alex Bregman had last year, even as he's a couple years into the major leagues. Of course, there's always the pipe dream that he can hit 25-plus home runs and be the monster that he was in the minor leagues last year. But this is a Red Sox team that I think is feeling like the American League is a little bit more wide open, and that especially you look at the AL East, the Orioles didn't do a ton. You're not worried about the Blue Jays. The Yankees lose Juan Soto. I think you can feel like you add one more piece here that's proven that you know what you're going to get, and you can feel a lot better about your chances to make a run in 2025, but that doesn't compromise the future here. And if you do lose Bregman, okay, that's fine. You got Christian Campbell, one of the best infield prospects in baseball, ready to jump right up and plug in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, the Red Sox do have a really strong farm system, and they added pitching too. Their win total on the FanDuel Sportsbook is 85.5, and I think it's not really on the strength of Bregman. It's on the strength that all of a sudden they have Garrett Crochet and Walker Buehler. I mean, those were really big adds for them for pitching. They're talking about maybe using a six-man rotation. We're hearing that more and more for other teams as well. Minus 122 to make the playoffs, to win the AL East, a long shot. Same with the American League. But health is going to determine this, and I guess on the positive side, if Walker Buehler throws 150 innings, and if Garrett Crochet and Bayo and Giolito and all these guys throw 150 innings, I think Boston could fly over this 85.5. But we are dealing with a lot of injury history on the pitching side. So for me, this is a tough call. What do you think?
I like the over. I agree with everything you're saying, but at the same time, you look at this lineup and the balance now that it has. They really needed a right-handed bat, and I love what Bregman brings to the table in that ballpark as well. I mean, you can already imagine how many doubles he's going to be hitting off of that green monster there. And in his career, 41 games at Fenway Park, or against the Red Sox, actually, I should say. He has an OPS over 1,000. A lot of those games in Fenway Park, I think the OPS is right around there as well. But in terms of the pitching, it's definitely volatile, but you look at where the pitching was at last year, it's still a lot better, not just because you have the ace at the top in Crochet, but I think there's more depth in general as well. Even just better plug-and-play options if it gets to that. I think they were in a spot last year where their plug-and-play options this year were guys that were ending up being expected to kind of grab the 4 and 5 spot in the rotation. But I do believe that they're going to get more out of a Quinn Priester with what they're doing pitching development-wise. Richard Fitz looks like he could be a solid depth arm as well. I do feel as though they have more options than they'd had in the past, and I think there's a little bit more balance to the bullpen all of a sudden as well. So if the pitching's even just a little bit stronger, I think that lineup is pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an exciting year, I think, for the fans there. How many games they win remains to be seen. All right, so going into this season, as far as prospects are concerned, let's keep it real. There aren't like the superstar Skeens names or Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neill Cruz, Merrill. I mean, it's a different kind of year in baseball for prospects. It's not to say that guys are going to come up and not be very good, but there aren't any like huge names coming out. I think the Bregman news maybe elevates the status of one prospect I know you want to talk about, and that is Matt Shaw on the Chicago Cubs. They opted, obviously, not to match the offer that was made by Boston. It would appear that the Cubs were very much in it, but didn't want to match the amount of money or those opt-outs. They wanted to lock him in. So that opens the door for Matt Shaw. Is he the very best offensive prospect going into the season? Because none really jump off the page as huge superstars this season.
I think if you balance opportunity and ability, yes. I think if you just balance there, just look at the ability, Roman Anthony is probably the closest guy to the superstars that you mentioned last year in the Boston Red Sox organization. But we just talked about it. There's a ton of bats there. So it's going to be hard to find consistent ABs for Roman Anthony. Matt Shaw now has a clear path directly to third base. The defense has gotten so much better there. And what he did at the end of the year, I mean, it was really impressive to see the way that he closed out the season. An OPS over 1,000 over his final 50 games, hit 335, 417, 585. It's a blend of hitting the ball hard, speed, a ton of doubles, a good feel to hit, and the fact that he's gotten himself to becoming a solid defender at the hot corner. I think that's part of the reason I've been critical of the Cubs for being a little bit cheap. Chicago freaking Cubs. But in this instance, I could understand not wanting to push your limits when you have a guy that does look like he can plug and play and hold his own at the hot corner this coming season.
All right, last thing, the hot names right now, a week in. Brandon Sproat on the New York Mets. Look out. This guy's going to be a star. Are you buying in on all this early stuff?
I'm excited about him, but I also think people need to look at, what happened in AAA. The zone gets a little tighter, hitters get a bit more disciplined, and all of a sudden that fringy command starts to rear its head a little bit more. I do think he ran out of gas a tad, but this is a guy that if he is able to clean things up and repeat the mechanics a little bit more, the stuff is as good as anybody in the minor leagues. He's up to 100+ miles per hour. He's got that Paul Skeens adjacent splinter, a cutter, a slider as well that are disgusting. Stuff-wise, he could be a monster for them.
All right, Aram, great to catch up with you, man. I know I'll see you around the ballpark soon. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
All right, justbaseball.com, great website for all of your baseball news, notes, and info. Be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop it back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. We're going to close out the week in style here with a little last licks. Just a reminder, our fantasy baseball coverage here at SportsGrid begins. Has it begun? I don't know. Has anyone talked fantasy baseball yet? I don't think so. So that would be me tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern as Fantasy Sports Today kicks off our baseball season coverage. So stay tuned to that. Tomorrow morning live, 8 a.m. Eastern. All right, now we wrap it up with the big race coming up. Also a race to not go to jail, too late for one guy, And are you ready for the grand finale of Mac McClung? Time now for some last legs. Well, there's been a lot of smack talk over the last couple of years between Olympian Noah Lyles and the cheetah Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek Hill is no stranger to trash talk. It feels like this guy is saying something every day, saying something about someone somewhere. But they're finally going to put their money where their mouth is coming up later this spring or even in the summer. It feels like before the football season begins, they got to get this done. Gold Olympian Noah Lyles has decided, yes, I will race against Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the one that did all the talking, right? Like this was like, I'll do it anytime, anywhere, any place. They have finally agreed. They're going to race against each other. I don't know if this will be available to be bet on. I have no clue. And I also don't think that Tyreek Hill is going to beat Noah Lyles either. But needless to say, they are going to race. Hopefully it'll be for some charity, still sort of to be determined how it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. Maybe some streaming service picks it up. Maybe it'll be on the same day as this fight with John Rocker and Pat Mahomes. I don't know. But off season for Tyreek Hill. Lyles has about another year before he gets ready for the Olympics. So this is set to come. It was announced yesterday. By the way, People Magazine breaking the story yesterday. Interesting there. All right. So this guy in Montana who was a postman working for USPS decides that he's going to steal packages and take the $850 worth of baseball cards, football cards, basketball cards in Billings, Montana. Decided to steal it. He's a U.S. postal worker. It's against the law, obviously. And then took the cards to a sports card store that was mailed to a customer. So this was figured out pretty quickly. And folks, talk about the stupider people being more stupid. This is one of those. Now, you know that if you work for USPS, it's a federal crime to steal the mail. You know that if you're an individual that's not even working for USPS, you know that you can't steal other people's mails or you're going to jail. So indeed, this is going to end up happening. He's going to plead guilty. And just word to the wise, folks. I know that we see all these videos on Ring and all these like camera videos about people taking each other's Amazon stuff. The United States Postal Service does not bleep around. Don't take other people's mail out of their mailbox. Doesn't matter what it is. You're going to get caught. You're going to go to jail. It's a federal crime. Don't do it. How these people get away with Amazon, I have no idea. But when it comes to the United States Postal Service, it's against the law, federal crime. And just for $850, too. Not a good idea. All right, Mac McClung is known for one thing in the National Basketball Association. It's this time every year. He participates in slam dunk contests, and he ends up winning. In fact, he's won 2. That's the good news. Here's the sad news. McClung, in an interview yesterday, has decided, with the Sporting News, by the way, has decided to hang up his dunking shoes. This will be the final slam dunk contest that he participates in because he was just superly transparent. Is that a word, superly? Super transparent about his dunks. He said he's running out of ideas. This is the dunk contest that's coming up this weekend, and the guy who won the last 2 says he has no more ideas. Why would you bet on Mac McClung to win the dunk? Take somebody else this weekend. Did he not just tip you off? He's got nothing going into the weekend. He said that he's not going to participate anymore because he's running out of ideas. This dude has no more ideas left. The dunk contest, folks, I don't know who's going to win. It ain't going to be Mac McClung this weekend. No three-peat. No Pat Riley getting money for three-peat. Somebody else is going to win. Chiefs just didn't get the three-peat done. Mac McClung is not going to get it done either. That's how I'm going to end the show for today. Want to thank our guests on the program, Aram Leighton from Just Baseball, and in addition, want to thank Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News and Jim Sanis, of course, weighing in from FanDuel on the big race coming up this weekend in Daytona. Also, we got a great schedule coming up for you. Coming up at noon, Smiley weighs in on the Genesis Invitational. They're in round 2, by the way, of the big golf tournament, so stay tuned to that. Pharrell Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. Game time decisions coming your way later, followed by in-game live game day, and then Sports Rage tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, our first look at the upcoming fantasy baseball season. It's me and George Kirk, and then on Sunday, it's Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker. For our director, Luke, and our producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Call your mom and wish her a happy Valentine's Day. Today is Valentine's Day. At the very least, do that. Have a great weekend.